Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the next part of the series of talking about the aspects in Diablo 4 and like what to expect, where you can find them, what they do, and whatnot. We're about to go through it. Right now we are gonna go through the resource aspects. We just went through the utility ones. So there is currently 21 resource aspects that you can find in the Codex of Power, whether it's through completing dungeons or progressing in the campaign in specific territories. So, number 1, the aspect of Torment. Critical strikes with bone skills increase your essence regeneration by 20% for 4 seconds. And you unlock this by completing the dungeon Black Asylum in Fractured Peaks, so the Act 1 area. And this is for the Necromancer. So, I mean, if you're using bone skills and you get critical strikes, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Your essence regeneration is increased for 20% for 4 seconds. That sounds awesome. I mean, as long as you have a high critical strike chance, you could keep your essence regeneration up for... Granted, I don't know if... it probably doesn't stack, so it's probably going to be every 4 seconds. Like, you get essence regeneration for 4 seconds... and then after the 4 seconds you can hit it again, get a critical, like the next critical strike again after the 4 seconds will probably tick this aspect going again, so you can get more essence regeneration. It didn't say anything about stacking. Like, this is all these aspects are straight from the Codex of Power. Like, I screenshot it so that I'm not missing any information. This is as is said from the Codex of Power in-game. And then, so number 2, aspect of the Unsatiated. After killing an enemy with Shred, your next werewolf skill generates 20% more spirit and deals 20% more increased damage. And you unlock this by completing the dungeon Tormented Ruins in Fractured Peaks Druid. So this sounds like a really good aspect to get early on if you're using werewolf skills, because then you can constantly keep using them and you do more damage. And it doesn't really say it's not like a time thing. It's your next werewolf skill generates 20% more spirit and deals 20% increased damage, so it does more damage. That's next skill you use after you kill an enemy with Shred. It probably doesn't stack, so if you kill multiple enemies with Shred at the same time, you probably don't get like 60% increased damage. And then aspect of Changeling's Debt. Damaging a poisoned enemy with a werebear skill will instantly deal 120% of the poisoning damage and consume the poisoning. And you get this by completing the dungeon Conclave in Kehejistan, and this is for the Druid. So if you damage a poisoned enemies, you instantly deal 120% of the poison damage at that time, and then it consumes it, so they're not poisoned anymore. So you probably do more damage than what the poison would have done. It says 120%, so it's probably 20% more damage than the base damage. A little bit more than that. And then for number 4 is the Prodigy's aspect. Using the cooldown restores 15 mana. Progress campaign in Harazar to unlock Sorcerer. So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you use a cooldown skill, you get 15%. You get 15 mana back. 15 seems like really low. I feel like I said in the utility that there's probably certain aspects that are like what is it, scaled based on your level, and I still think that's the case. So number 5 is Incendiary aspect, which on a lucky hit, burning damage has up to 5% chance to restore 10 mana. Unlocked by completing the dungeon Tomb of the Saints in Kehejistan for Sorcerer. So this would probably be pretty good if you're using Incinerate, because there's probably a high chance of getting burning damage going. So obviously you're using a fire spell, or even the Hydras. The Hydras would be probably even better for that. And then you can keep restoring your mana that way, and then casting more Hydras. And then for the number 6 aspect of Potent Blood. While at full life, blood orbs grant 10 essence, unlocked by completing Dungeon Betrayer's Row in Dry Steppes, and it's a Necromancer aspect. So, blood orbs is probably a thing that probably can drop when you're playing a Necromancer. So instead of like healing you, because Necromancers use both health and essence to cast their spells. That's how it is in the last few games, so I would imagine it's the same in this. We haven't had access to the Necromancer yet for gameplay. I can't remember if they said we would have full access to all 5 classes on the open beta, or if it's still going to be the base 3 of Rogue, Sorcerer, and Barbarian. So maybe we might get more insight into some of these the Necromancer skills and or aspects, because obviously there's a lot of aspects that you can find in Fractured Peaks that belong to Necromancers, and I would imagine to be able, like, you couldn't exactly get a feel of how they would work because you weren't playing a Necromancer. So maybe we might get a chance to get to see how some of these aspects feel with our gear. Number 7, aspect of the Umbral. Restore 1 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy, unlocked by completing Dungeon Champion's Demise in Dry Steppes. Again, some of these numbers are awfully low in the Codex of Power, and I feel like they scale with your level. I could be totally wrong. Don't quote me on that. I'm probably really wrong on that. These might be the base numbers, and they probably might never fucking change. So we will see. Number 8, Flesh-Rending Aspect. After Decomposed spawns a corpse, gain 10 essence. Unlocked by completing Dungeon Nostrava Deepwood in Fractured Peaks, and this is for Necromancer. Again, Decompose is probably a skill that lets you create corpses from bodies of enemies. I would imagine that you have to create your own corpses to use. Compared to in Diablo 3, where if you kill an enemy, a corpse might drop. Like, there's a percentage chance that a corpse will drop, unless there always is a chance of one. But it sounds like Decompose can create a corpse. Unless the Decompose is a skill that lets you break down your summons, and then you can use that corpse. I don't know. Who knows? We'll find out. The Requiem aspect, you gain 3 maximum essence per active minion. Progress campaign in Skosklin, and that's for the Necromancer. Again, such a low number. I really feel like some of these numbers scale. But also, like, 3s are pretty decent. I mean, on the Sorcerer's skill tree, there is a passive skill that adds 3 mana, and that's it. And kind of dumb. Kind of a dumb skill. Recharging aspect. Each time Chain Lightning bounces off you, gain 4 mana. Progress the campaign in Fractured Peaks to unlock. So this is one of the things we gained access to in Fractured Peak by completing Act 1. And Chain Lightning, a lot of people... I did more of a defensive build. I was using mostly barriers and ice shards, but I've seen some gameplay of people using Chain Lightning and sparks and whatnot, and they were wiping the whole map of enemies with like 1 or 2 casts. So I have a feeling like this is something that would be really good to use as an aspect. So you can just get your mana back and keep casting your core skills and any skill after that. And then aspect of the Calm Breeze. On a lucky hit, Wind Shear has up to a 5% chance to fully restore your spirit. Unlocked by completing Dungeon Grinning Labyrinth and Dry Steppes, and this is for a druid. That's awesome. Even though it's a low chance of 5%, being able to fully restore your spirit from casting a skill, like if you like it's the last cast and your resource is gone and you have to wait or like regain it by casting your basic skills. If you have the add-on to your skill that allows you to gain mana from casting from hitting an enemy. Like, this would be awesome. Like, being able to get your resource fully restored, even on a low percentage chance, you'll probably hit that more than you think. Sometimes I feel like the percentage is arbitrary in terms of things, because again, I feel like a lot of these times games give you like a number, but like I feel like that number isn't technically correct. Like, you probably will hit it more times than you think you wouldn't hit it. And then number 12, hulking aspect. Your golem has a 10% chance to reduce its active cooldown by 2 seconds, and a 5% chance to spawn a corpse each time it damages an enemy with its normal attack. And you unlock this by completing the dungeons Sepulchre of the Forsworn in Kehedristan. Obviously, it's for the Necromancer. Like, 10% chance to reduce your active cooldown, like its own active cooldown, so you can cast it again, is awesome. Like 2 seconds isn't really nothing to snuff at, because a lot of these skills are like maybe 30 seconds. If it hits an enemy like enough times within that 30 seconds to be able to cut its cooldown in half, that's good in my opinion. And in fact, it can also spawn a corpse for other skills is even better. And for number 13 is the Ravenous aspect. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 50% increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds, and you unlock this by completing the dungeon Shifting City in Dry Steppes, and this is for the rogue. Honestly, I feel like rogues are probably the ones that will vulnerable enemies more than anything else. I think there's some aspects that sorcerers have that also do more damage to vulnerable enemies, and I feel like, well, have to deal with vulnerable, like making an enemy vulnerable and then gaining some kind of benefit off of it. But I feel like rogues are probably the ones that will take advantage of the vulnerable status effect more than anyone else. And then the slacking aspect, or slaking, however you want to pronounce it. On a lucky hit, you have up to 30% chance to gain 20 fury when Ren deals direct damage to at least one bleeding enemy. Again, I feel like as a barbarian, you don't be doing you'll probably be making enemies bleed a lot. There's probably your skills probably have a lot of like a high bleeding chance to like cause an enemy to bleed. So a lot of these aspects have to do with bleeding and or kind of build around it. That or thorns. I feel like thorns probably cause bleeding as well. So like they'll probably go hand in hand. And you unlock this by completing the dungeon Mallwood and Fractured Peak. So Act 1, probably some of you probably use this aspect. And then the Fast Blood aspect, Blood Orbs reduce your ultimate cooldown by 0.5 seconds. Progress the campaign and Harazard to unlock. Again, I feel like these numbers will probably change based on your level and or because you go up to level 100, so like having a 0.5 second reduction on your ultimate cooldown, if that ultimate skill probably we didn't get access to ultimate skills because it takes 7 skill points past 25, so around 32. Level 32 is probably around the time you unlock your ultimate cooldown, well, your ultimate skill, well, 1 out of like 4 ultimates. So 0.5 seconds at level 100, I don't see how that's going to be really beneficial. So I feel like, again, this probably scales with your level. And it's for the Necromancer. If Blood Orbs, a lot of these have the same, easy to tell who it's for. Aspect of Unrelenting Fury, aspect for a Barbarian. Killing the enemy with a core skill refunds 10% of his base Fury cost. Can only happen once per skill cast. So say if you use, I don't know if Whirlwind is a core skill, but if it is, it would only happen once per Whirlwind cast. But like, I think maybe Rend and Leap are part of that core skill list, so it's possible you would get 10% of its Fury cost back if you kill an enemy with it. And you get this by completing the dungeon Hallowed Ossuary and Fractured Peaks. So again, another early aspect to expect in the beta or when the game releases. And then the aspect of efficiency. Casting a basic skill reduces the mana cost of your next core skill by 10%. And this is for the sorcerer, and you unlock this by completing the dungeon Damhain tunnels in Skasklin. And again, casting a basic, like, maybe you don't really use basic skills as a sorcerer. A lot of people weren't really using them when during the closed beta because they're too busy wiping screens with their core skills. But being able to reduce the cost of your core skill by 10% just by casting a basic skill is really good. So that only means you have to tap that button once and then hit the next button, and it costs less. I probably, it doesn't say anything about stacking that cost reduction stacking, so it's probably once you cast a basic skill, the next core skill you spend will be 10% less. It will not get higher than 10%. And then the mangled aspect. When you're struck as a werebear, you have a 20% chance to gain 1 spirit. Again, a low number, like 1 spirit. It doesn't seem like, I feel like, again, that would probably be scaled higher with your level. And you unlock this by completing the dungeon Immortal Emanation in Fractured Peak, so another early aspect. But 20% chance to gain spirit back when you hit. That's awesome. That's a pretty good aspect in my opinion. And then number 19 out of 21, aspect of the Relentless Arms Master. Gain a 20% increased Fury generation while all damage bonuses from the Walking Arsenal key passive are active. And you unlock this by completing the dungeon Calibel's Mine in Skasklin, and it's again for the Barbarian. Gain a 20% increased Fury generation while all your damage bonuses are active from like a skill. That's pretty good. That means you gain your Fury back as fast as you're casting it, for the most part, I would imagine. Energizing aspect. Damaging an elite enemy with a basic skill generates 5 energy. Progress the campaign and Fractured Peaks to unlock for the rogue. I feel like this aspect is like okay. It's not the best. I mean, you get your energy back, but how often are you actually running into elite enemies? Granted, they probably, there's probably more a higher level you get, and the higher the world tiers, but you can't guarantee you're running into an elite enemy every enemy group that you run into. So I feel like this aspect is kind of a waste of a slot, a waste of an aspect slot. I wouldn't use it playing as a rogue. And then aspect of Echoing Fury. Your shout skill generate 2 Fury per second while active, and you progress the campaign in Kehedristan to unlock. It sounds like the shout skills for the Barbarian are a cooldown based skill, so this would probably be a pretty good one. Good aspect. It means you can keep your Fury up just by casting a skill. I know a lot of people were having issues playing Barbarian, that they said that they were arguably very weak compared to other classes because you have to get close. I forget who it was. Asmongold just reacted to a video of his Criparian, whatever. He was talking about how melee, it feels like they left melee behind in the dust in terms of like it's really hard to play because bosses will drop like a zone and you stand in it and you're dead, or because the only way for a barbarian to gain fury is to attack an enemy. So being able to just cast a skill and gain 2 fury per second, and if that skill lasts 5 seconds, that's 5 times, well, 2 times 5 seconds, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's 10 fury. I mean, granted, it might not be too much, and I don't know the basic cost of a lot of the skills, but I mean, it at least gets you closer. I can't. It seems like a good aspect for the most part in terms of that. But again, let's go through and see who. Oh, I didn't have to click on it last time. I could just hover over it. So the Necromancer have 6. 6 aspects to it. The Druid has 4. The Sorcerer has 4 as well. All classes have a chance of having 1 additional aspect. There's 2 for rogues, and for barbarians there's 4. So Necromancer has the most resource aspects out of all the classes. 7 if you count the 1 from the any class, but I keep that separate in terms of, like, honestly it would be a pain for me to add this 1 aspect to every single classes page. I'd rather just keep it separate. So again, Necromancer is at the top of for resource aspects in terms of the amount that it has. And that's it for the resource aspects. I'll catch you next time on the next one.